Hi everyone, I'm Barry Steigers. I'm the morning host on K-High Radio in Auburn, California, and I'm also your host here on the Auburn News Channel 20. This week, K-High hosted the Auburn Mayor, Kevin Henley. We discussed several items from the visit of the 49ers, which was a group of antique cars who started coast to coast, meeting in the central part of the country on the famous Lincoln Highway. Auburn just happens to be a part of the Lincoln Highway. Our Lincoln Way was, at that time, the Lincoln Highway. Here's that report with now Mayor Kevin Henley. Joining us, which is always a pleasure, is the mayor of our city, Kevin Henley. Kevin, it's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Good morning, Barry.
Thank you for coming in the rain.
We're giving Auburn's a generous town, and so we're giving everyone a free car wash.
A car wash.
Last night.
How clever. How clever. Hey, the city's been busy. Yesterday I saw you out in front as the old car, the Lincoln old car thing, which is a celebration of, I think, 100 years of the Lincoln Highway, which was, I think, was our first intercontinental highway that went from coast to coast. So that was neat, Auburn being a stop on that tour, and of course our Highway 49 and all that has been a major role in all this. So that was fun. What did the city do?
It was the Lincoln Highway Association 100th anniversary, and we named our Lincoln Way because of the efforts of some industrialists, a lot of folks to have a transcontinental road, rock road. We also, in our section, had a local company in Placer County supply a lot of the rock that constructed the Lincoln Highway. And so it was nice. We had, I don't know, maybe 80 people in front of City Hall. They wanted to make one of the stops here. They're going from the Bay Area to Kearney, Nebraska. And then they have another group of vehicles and folks going from Times Square in New York, going west to meet in Kearney, Nebraska. And so it's kind of fun. And so we presented them a proclamation, and they presented us with a proclamation. And we were truly honored because it's a beautiful proclamation from the Lincoln Highway Association that they've only given to 3 cities. They're only going to give it to 3 cities in their journey. And they decided to give it to Auburn because of what we've done to honor the Lincoln Highway, all our efforts to preserve the history here in Lincoln. And so it was a wonderful ceremony and a nice presentation. So if anyone is interested, just walk by the front of the Auburn City Hall, and you'll see a beautiful granite Lincoln Highway marker that was found and dedicated in 1991, but it stands right in front of our City Hall. So if you're walking by, see the big L there. It's a beautiful piece of history, so take a look at it.
The city is involved in some other historical issues, Mayor. One I was reading this morning and have done some coverage on it with Councilman Holmes, which is the fountain over in the front of the courthouse, and it's in disrepair. It was a gift to the city, but it's actually sitting, as I understand, it's actually sitting on county land.
That's true.
And there is a movement on, I know, by the Navy League to get it fixed. So that was up for debate last night. How'd that go?
The proposal from Councilman Holmes was to dismantle the Neff fountain and give it to a restorer. And because there is evidence of internal erosion, probably rust and so forth over the years. It was a gift to the city by Jacob Neff in 1908. And he was a former state senator, minor, lieutenant governor, Placer County sheriff, a very prominent, interesting citizen. And so there's probably a need to restore it. We as a city council decided not to do that. That we wanted to put it on our official capital improvement program look at what is needed, because the Neff Fountain was originally in the middle of the road, and it was a drinking fountain.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't kind of a waterworks or anything. It was for dogs, humans, and horses. And there are interesting historical figures where all three are using the fountain. It was in the middle of the street, but then in the automobile age, you couldn't really use it anymore. And so it was moved to the front of the courthouse. And so the council wanted to support the effort to restore the Neff Fountain, but we have to look at the details. The initial estimates was $61,000 to electrify it, restore some of the water functions, but it doesn't serve the same function that it did. It's more decorative. So how can we preserve it for future generations? Get some of our city public works experts involved in looking at it, bids to do the work, so it's a professional job. I didn't want to dismantle it, rely on a public fundraising campaign. $61,000 is a lot to raise. I didn't want to have the city have to come in and then pay for that in an emergency kind of situation. I'd rather have a methodical process. What do we need to do? How much it will cost? I think Mike also said we should maybe give it to the county. I don't see any reason to do that at all. It's a city asset. It seems like it could be a low maintenance, and if we go through all this effort, we should probably keep control of it. We really care about the city, and it was a gift to the city. So those are for further discussion.
Would you move it from where it is now to a spot that the city owns, like here, Square? Or
I don't think it's necessary. The county is not asking us to move it. I think it's one of the iconic symbols of Auburn and Placer County. I think it looks perfect right in front of the courthouse.
Right where it is, yeah.
I've taken pictures myself with the view of the Neff Fountain and the courthouse. It's a beautiful view, and so I think it's great where it is. We'll see if there's other ideas, but I think Mike was right to want to restore it, and we can do it right, I think. So we took action to put it on our official capital improvement program. We put the historic firehouses there, the old city hall, the civic center. So we put historic buildings, things that we need to keep track of and not let be run down. And it's a good way, once we put on that list, we ask, well, how can we raise money? Where can we find money? Are there grants? Are there general fund money? How can we do this? So it's a constant reminder we need to do something about that. So that's a good first step, I think, in helping to restore the Neff Fountain for future generations. By the way, he was lieutenant governor, and he said, it was said about him that he was one of the few persons who entered public life with a good name and exited public life with still good name.
Still good name.
So
How fun.
he's a hero.
Yeah, a hero in Auburn. And we have plenty of them. We got lots of them here.
And he started a brass band. He started the Auburn Brass Band, donated a bell to the local Episcopal Church. So he was one of those go-getter,
We have a bunch of
civic,
those in this town.
amazing
It's great.
guys that we have in Auburn. We're lucky.
Mayor, the money that was, I hate the word taken away, but when there were reductions required in the city back some time ago, when I think it was 2007, we started hitting the bottom with tax money not coming in, and
Right.
had to do some real belt tightening, I guess, to be fair. And so now you're starting to pay some of that back. That all kind of
Yes.
happened this week too. So tell me a little bit more about that.
And we always try to, we have a 3-part balancing test with our budget. Basically, how can we provide money for municipal services, paving streets and so forth, that average residents benefit from? How can we build a sufficient reserve for emergency? And then the third part of the balancing act is how can we retain and attract good employees? So when we took a 20% general fund cut, we asked the city employees to take a big pay cut, basically just to survive and keep services up and keep the reserve normal level, a good level, 33%. So now that we've had some extra money coming in, good sales tax, good property tax, we want to restore some of those pay cuts so we can keep those employees, because they can go to Placer County, City of Roseville, and we lose them, and we lose their historical knowledge about how the city runs. So we're starting to restore some of those pay cuts. Last night I announced to City Council a 4% raise for four of our unrepresented confidential employees that work in the finance department, deputy, city clerk, and public works. And we also agreed with them that they would pay 7% into their share of CalPERS. So actually, it'll cost the city $11,000, but we'll save $16,000. But they want to be like the other units, basically the same kind of thing, where you pay into your CalPERS, you have to pay for your pension. So we agreed to that, and we have a transparency and bargaining policy in the city where we put everything on the web for 2 weeks. And so the average Auburn resident, if they want to see the details of these agreements with the labor units, how much it'll cost over 3 years, they can review that, send us an email, tell us good idea, bad idea, whatever. So we're trying to be transparent with each other, transparent with the public, and give the public enough opportunity to say to the city council what they think about it. So that should be on the web. This morning we had agreements with the firefighters and some other employee units, and so we'll have 4 agreements on there. So we keep on negotiating. I think we have 2 or 3 more to go, but making some progress so far.
Now, this was your idea. We talked about this some months ago, about getting
Yep.
this information transparent using the website, which I think is a great idea. Are you getting reaction yet? Is it too new?
What I've seen so far, I'm not getting a lot of reaction from the public so far. I'm getting in public meetings kind of nods, yeah, that's a good idea. We're not getting specific recommendations from the public on these agreements per se, but I think the public so far says, I like transparency. I like how the city is opening up and asking for input. What I found as far as a process is that when the city puts its proposal up and when the labor unit puts its proposal up, they're very realistic. So we put a 4% raise up, the firefighters the sergeants put a 5%. So there's not a lot of difference there, where in the past, when it was all behind closed doors, sometimes we would receive proposals of all kinds of raises for all kinds of people, and like a Christmas tree. And that wasn't realistic with the amount of money that were coming into the city. So right now, when everything's transparent, the public can look at it, both the labor units and the city are being really realistic. How much money is available? How much do we need to continue to provide services, keep the reserve up? And so it's going a lot quicker because we don't have that much disagreement. So we're generally doing about 4% restoration raises this year to restore the pay cuts. And a lot of the bargaining units are going, yeah, that's fair. We trust you guys. We entered into an agreement with you during the tough times. You've negotiated in good faith with us, and we'd like to work with you in the future. So we're not having as many labor union issues that maybe some cities have experienced in the past. So I think it's been good so far. We'll see how it plays out. It takes probably a couple years to see how it works out. But so far, I'm pleased with our transparency.
Well, congratulations. That's a major move in the right direction, I think. Now, we're here on the morning after the bi-monthly city council meeting. So last night, anything other that you want to bring up to let us know about what happened?
We only took, we're going to do the budget in 2 weeks, the big budget, and looking forward to that. Lastly, the police chief came up with a new way to purchase police vehicles, and from Ford Motor Company. And instead of buying the vehicles with money up front, we're going to kind of purchase them over a 5-year period. Right now we have a problem where our 7 marked vehicles have 100 to 166,000 miles on them. And when you get over 100,000, you start to get more repair bills. So what we're doing with Ford Motor Company is buying the vehicles and trying to, over a 5-year period, but keeping the mileage around 60,000 miles, so we have fewer repair bills. So hopefully we'll save money in the end, and it's being paid by the asset forfeiture program that we've entered into the county. So actually the bad guys are buying our new police vehicles, which is good, and they'll be white. We've had some complaints about past purchases of the black cars. Some of the vehicles, they look like sort of muscle cars or something, and
Stealth, we call them here.
yeah,
K-High.
and I've never been a fan of that. I like to be Mayberry, but have good, solid police work, and it just sends the wrong message. Young guys driving in fast cars is not what we want. That's not our image. We want community policing, our police officers talking to people, learning things, solving crimes, grabbing the bad guys, and so we're moving to a white vehicle mode. So we'll have 2 vehicles over this next year, and we'll gradually expand. Right now we have 7 of the marked vehicles so far. So I thought it was a good, innovative proposal by our police chief on that. And then on a subject that interests you, I've asked the police chief to report to us in July about the homeless situation, our laws, what are we doing about the problem, how are we working with the county, with the nonprofits, what's the status of the situation. We've talked about the zoning issue that the state is requiring us to do, but I think we'd like to get into a larger discussion about what the situation is. I do get a lot of complaints from neighbors about homeless folks camping out on their property. We may have had a fire started by a homeless camp. So there's certain public safety issues, and then issues about how to get people help when they want help, and working with the county social services. So I talked to the police chief, and he'll be presenting a report maybe in mid-July, and I think it'll be informative.
Great. Mayor Henley, ladies and gentlemen, always joining us here on the morning after, and we always appreciate his time. Mayor, thanks for coming by.
Thanks, Barry.
Always appreciate your time. Also visiting the K-High studios this week was Lieutenant Mark Reed. Lieutenant Reed is the Public Relations Officer for the Placer County Sheriff's Organization, as also the head of the detective group for Placer County Sheriff. We talked about a lot of things. We had some interesting gun incidences this past week and this past month, and it caused the sheriff to sit down and take a look at how this is now becoming an issue. We also chatted about the selling of fireworks in Northern California, and I questioned why we allow this to happen. We have the highest fire risk of any state in the union. The cost of wildfires in this state is massive and hits the taxpayers hard. So why would we allow the sale of the very items that often start these fires? Well, Lieutenant Reed and I had a fine chat about that, as well as other things that affect us on a daily basis. Here now is that report.
Joining us is Lieutenant Reed. He's a lieutenant with the Placer County Sheriff's Department, and nice to have you with us, Mark.
Good morning.
It's interesting how much publicity you're getting today. You're all over the news today, all due to a interesting little case having to do with guns. The gun issue in this country is interesting. I've seen little 5-year-old kids who make a candy bar looking like a gun get thrown out of school, so the sensitivity on this stuff is very high. Mm-hmm. You had an interesting incident this week. Tell me about that.
Well, we actually had, in 1 week, we had 2 separate calls where people had reported seeing people with guns, rifles, or assault weapon. And so we responded out. Deputies responded out, and on one of the incidents, they confronted several young adults, probably in their 20s, and they had the airsoft guns, which is kind of the new trend of it shoots the little BBs, the plastic BBs. They were confronted in a field by the deputies, and at first they didn't comply with the deputies' orders, and that could be a tragic situation. Could go very bad, because those guns are very realistic. I mean, if you put one next to a real assault weapon, you can't tell the difference. So that was one of the incidents. Luckily, we were able to.
Mark, before you go on, let me talk to you about a little bit of something here about this. This thing bothers me a bit. The gun makers, the pellet gun makers, and the people who make the non-regular guns, obviously do this to sell their product. So it's a marketing issue. But the other issue, which is, and I'm assuming you have to put your people through some interesting training. They only have a few seconds to make a decision on whether or not that might or might not be a real gun. So their life is on the line, or could be. That's the decision they're faced with. That's the one area that the people who are playing this punk stuff or trying to be smart butts and say, I'm not going to listen to you, Mr. Sheriff, because I'm a big shot.
Well, I think a lot of times they realize it's an airsoft gun, and so maybe their mindset's not in it. I mean, obviously there's a lot of people that do play the airsoft, and there's nothing wrong with, people want to go out and play that. We don't have an issue with that. But if you are contacted by police, realize that they don't understand. We cannot tell from a distance, even if I was standing 4 or 5 feet from you, I could not tell if that was a airsoft gun or a regular gun, depending on how you're holding it. So we're going to assume that it's a regular gun, especially if we get calls from people that say, hey, there's some people running around out here. One of the other incidents we had, somebody said, hey, I just saw somebody. I came home. I can see somebody back in the ranch area behind me in Lincoln. One guy's got a assault weapon, and they're yelling that they shot somebody. And obviously that person that was calling in was a little, freaked out.
Sure.
And then we actually had another neighbor call in to say, a separate person call in and say, hey, somebody's been shot. I can hear them yelling. So we sent our deputies obviously down there to find out. Turned out to be another airsoft weapon, but at this time they were making some young teens, or some older teenagers that were making a movie. So again, there's nothing wrong with making the movie and them, doing the scenes.
It's a way to handle
but it's, you just have to be, and they were compliant. They complied when we went down there. But
Mark, you may not have the answer to this question, but I think it's a great question. When you have to roll people on a call like this, it's got to cost the county some real dollars. I mean, you got manpower, you got vehicles, you've got the dispatching type. I mean, you activate a bunch of systems. This cannot be a free ride, so the taxpayers are paying something. Any thoughts on what that may cost?
Well, as far as the cost-wise, we have the officers that patrol that area, and then we send other units from other areas to go out to be their backup, so to speak. So we have people in place to respond to that. So as far as the cost goes, on one of the incidents, we had used one of the helicopters, I think it was CHP's helicopter was up in Auburn, so they flew over there. So there's a cost involved in the fuel for them flying over. We were able to cancel them once we figured out what was going on. But one of the other things that instead of the cost factor, we send our units what we call code 3, which is basically lights and sirens, kind of, you see that you hear the siren, the lights. Well, anytime you're driving code 3, there's a danger to the public, there's a danger to the officers. So on a situation like that, we would send several units, would be traveling, again, what we call code 3. So there's a safety kind of an issue in there. I mean, we're trained to drive, fast and with our lights, but we still, sometimes people can't hear them, and so there's always that chance. So we don't usually do that. We don't usually drive code 3 unless there's a major need for it. It's not like we just go code 3 wherever we go.
Mark, who makes that decision that it is a code 3? Is that something that's programmed almost into a military manual kind of thing that
we have
dispatchers have to go through a triage of thinking?
Basically what happens is the officers on the streets, when they go through their training and everything, we have it in our procedure manual on what calls would require a code 3 response, what don't. And then kind of a checks and balances on that. Whenever we have somebody responding, what we call code, the sergeant, the supervisor, which is the first line, or the sergeant, which is the first line supervisor, ends up acknowledging and approving that they're going. So they don't necessarily have to ask to go, because, I mean, we give them a badge and we give them a gun and we send them to go out there and we give them the guidelines that they need. But there is someone that kind of oversees, okay, I've got, 2 units. And then we also have, depending on what the call is, how many we would send. We're not going to send, if it's a major call, somebody, an active shooter, then, yeah, you're probably going to get, 4 or 5 units going. If it's some sort of violence, if someone calls in and says that, they're being attacked, obviously we're going to send units as fast as we can. So we judge it on basically the severity of the crime. If it's a fight and now the parties are separated, then chances are that we're just going to go on at a regular speed, because again, there is a danger involved to the public and to the officers.
No, I give you guys a lot of credit. Change thoughts here for a minute. The new jail. We're looking forward to taking a nice video tour of that jail soon with the sheriff and with the other officers that have been involved in creating this jail. So how's that coming? I know you're getting ready to activate it. That's as soon as next year, right?
Yes. I'm not sure the exact date. Captain Wu will probably sure be one of the people out there to give you the tour. And
right.
He's been instrumental in getting this kind of up and running. So I'm not sure of the exact details as far as the jail goes, as far as the timeline that goes, but I know there's a lot of work. We just had testing for correctional officers, so had a lot of applicants. I think we did two full days of doing the physical agility and the written test, so trying to find some...
So you're recruiting, in effect.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we started a recruitment, and then now we're in kind of the next stage. The next stage is testing, going through the testing process, where they do complete a physical agility course, and then they also do a written test.
Good. Mark, this past week, the Supreme Court again came down, and the trial, or a Supreme Court of California has again reinforced that the state of California must drop the population of the state's prison system. And we've been through this, the realignment, which is only a couple of years old, and you sheriffs, local sheriffs in each county, have had to take this project on. So you've had to deal with a whole bunch of things, budget cuts and stuff, and it has caused you some grief, I know. I've talked to you about it. But you've kind of come through that. Now all of a sudden you're getting a double whammy. You're getting another slap with a release of almost 10,000 people. Tell me about the realignment. Did crime go up? Did it make a change in all of the processes you had to deal with? I know the homeless tick happened here in Placer County. And did crime take a tick also? And if so, are you guys expecting another one of these?
Well, I think that, kind of history has shown us that a lot of the people that do go to prison, a lot of times they do reoffend. So I think it's safe to say that some of those 10,000 people that they have to release, probably, quite a few of them will reoffend. It means other victims. So that's a scary part for us. The realignment issue is them, as you know, sending them over to our jail to stay in our jail. If they're just releasing these people and they go out and they reoffend again, they're going to end up back in our jail, and it's just going to be the circle that goes on. So I know that we've been looking at programs and trying to figure out. Probation's been looking at programs as well, trying to figure out how to set some of these people up so they don't offend again. It'd be perfect if, we could say, hey, you know what, they've done their time, they've done their, or they're getting out early, but hey, these guys won't reoffend. But, history's shown us that a lot of them do.
Yeah, they do. Well, also, there's another issue that occurs, and this is sort of what happened in the mental health process over the last 40 or 50 years, is that the state technically throws them on the street. Now, I'm assuming they don't give them $10,000 so that they can go live for a few months, pay rent, buy clothing. So they technically get a few bucks, I'm sure, and they get thrown on the street. They have not necessarily a place to go. They may not have family. Mm-hmm. Where they would go, obviously, is back to their home, which could be Placer County, in effect.
Right.
Maybe there's family here, and maybe there's not, and maybe no supportive family. So they wind up basically homeless. They walk around on the streets, and they take handouts, and the churches help, and the Salvation Army helps, and so on. This is what's happening. I mean, we're seeing this uptick on that side of the problem. You have to deal with that, too. I mean, I know you have an officer that's somewhat dedicated to helping these folks, getting them into the services that we have available. But at some point, the services aren't going to be enough. In fact, I think we're pretty much there.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen a rise in the homeless population. Part of that due to the probation officers and the parole offices in other counties closing and sending them over to us. And so if you have to check in with your parole officer and you don't have a mode of transportation, or you're going to stick around to where it's either that or miss parole, and you don't want to do that, so you're going to have to stick around. So we have seen that. We do have an officer that's dedicated, kind of our liaison with the homeless. He does a great job as kind of reaching out to them, and basically he helps them, gives them services and stuff that they can, utilize if they want to. But then he's also right there to, if they, step out of line and they're breaking the laws, or they're harassing people or something like that, then he's there to take care of that too.
So help the process. Okay, Mark, finally, 4th of July is coming. Since I moved to California some 30 years ago, I've always been totally flabbergasted that we allow fireworks to be sold on street corners in a state that is highly combustible most of the period of around the 4th of July. How do you deal with that?
Well, as you know, that fireworks in Placer County are illegal. So where you see the stands are in the city. Doesn't mean they can't take those and buy them in the city and go to Colfax or Placer County or the unincorporated areas and set them off. But we do kind of keep an eye out for that. The fire department drives around on the 4th of July, and they also will go out and confiscate fireworks or address the issue. But yeah, I share the same concerns with, especially in dry time. And then obviously you have some of the illegal fireworks that make their way up here, that the bottle rockets, and those are the ones that I think are the illegal ones to possess in California. But being right next to Nevada, you can buy lots of different things. They make their way over, and those are the ones that fly, shoot, and I think those are the ones that are more concerning than the safe and sane ones.
Well, and we have a history of people using these that set off wildfires that cost the state millions, and in some cases people their homes. Yep. So it just makes absolutely no sense to me that the state allows the sale of this stuff in any city. I just don't get it. I don't.
Well, I know that there's I think there's a bill right now that's going through where they're trying to make it so they sell them over the Christmas as well. So I think they're trying to get like a week during the Christmas.
Oh boy. Well, hey, we do live in a free society, Mark. So anyway, hey, always appreciate you, Mark. Thanks for coming in and bringing us up to date. Anything else before you run?
No, just good. Like you said, getting ready for the hot weather.
Hot weather. Good to chat with you. Mark Reed, ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant with the Placer County Sheriff's Office with the investigative unit, also the public relations guy, and we always appreciate his time.
This past weekend in Auburn was the 2013 running of the Western States 100 endurance race, and marked their 40th anniversary of this event. The race was started by a local chiropractor, Gordon Ainsleigh. Gordy is now 66 years old, and he entered the race this year, but after missing a cutoff point in time, he was disqualified. Truly a miracle that he ran it all this year, in grueling in the best of times. This year, they had a heat problem. Got to 102 degrees. Certainly a feat of superhuman endurance. ACTV's Paula Johnston and Robert Steffen were at the finish line with the cameras and witnessed the winners of this year's event. Let's go there now, and here's Paula.
Hi, this is Paula Johnston with Auburn News 20, and with me today is
Rachel Lord.
Rachel Lord. You sound like you have an accent.
I do, yeah, from England.
Whereabouts?
From Liverpool. Yeah.
Well,
so we're
isn't
from-
that interesting? She lived across the River Mersey from where I was born in Birkenhead.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
We're here from John Moores University in the UK doing some research at the race. So
What kind of research is it you're doing?
research into heart function. So we're looking at how running the 100-mile race affects different parts of the heart. So you've got 4 chambers in the heart, and the 2 left ones feed all the rest of your body, and the 2 right ones feed the lungs. So, or related to the lungs anyway. So we're looking at more the right side of it, because obviously if you're breathing quite hard for 100 miles, we're hoping to see some sort of different changes with these athletes. These athletes are so well trained that they're running so fast that we get some great data from them.
I
so.
can just imagine. It must
Yeah.
be a great source of information.
Absolutely, yeah. We came, well, I didn't come through, but my supervisor came 3 years ago and got some data. So we're looking at guys finishing in under 24 hours today. So we're going to be testing them when they finish, and then again 6 hours after that.
Did you find anything remarkable in your study last time?
We get like sort of various different changes with athletes post what we call ultra endurance exercise. And what we tend to see is what we call right ventricular, which is part of the right side of the heart. That's the bit that feeds the lungs. We see some changes in the right ventricle. So we see it gets bigger, so it dilates. And it also sort of reduces its function a little bit. But that's just a temporary thing, and they go back to normal. That's why we do the 6-hour post, so that we can get them at their normal values again.
Right. Do you notice any difference between males and females?
Not noticeably. We think males might react more significantly than women. Maybe women have a bit of a protective effect, but we don't have any data for that. So that's part of why we're doing males and females this time round.
Yeah.
So hope to eke out some maybe gender differences as well.
Oh, did you only do males last time?
They got mostly males last time. Yes, we've got a few more females this time round. So hopefully we've got
interesting.
a more balanced cohort.
That would be interesting. Auburn News 20, this is Paula Johnston. I'm here with John Trent. Can you give us an update on what's happening right now?
Well, so far, all the runners have done a great job of making sure that they've taken good care of themselves. We haven't had very many major issues in terms of heat or people having problems with the heat. And in fact, the leaders, who will be here in just a little bit, they're running fantastic. The top 3 finishers are going to run 3 of our fastest times ever. And on the women's side, the women's leader is also looking really strong and is also going to run a really fast time. So everybody has done what our race director Craig Thornley told them to do in Squaw Valley, which was to take good care of themselves today.
Oh, that's excellent news. That's really good to hear. And so who do we have in the front runners?
Well, right now, Tim Olson, who's our defending champion, is in the lead. The last thing we had heard was he was leading at the Browns aid station at mile 90, so he has probably at this point maybe 7-8 miles left to go. And he had about a 10-minute lead over a first-time runner named Rob Crar, who's hot on his heels and probably running really strong. And then Pam Smith, who's from Oregon, had a pretty comfortable lead in the women's race. Last thing we had heard, she was getting close to mile 85 and the ALT aid station.
Wow. And the temperatures have been pretty up there this year, haven't they?
They've been really hot today. Yeah, it's not our hottest day ever, but it's been, it's 100 degrees. And so when it's 100 degrees, people have to make sure they take good care of themselves. So even this morning, when I drove up to like Robinson Flat, which is in the high country, 6,000 feet at mile 30 this morning at 8 a.m., it was warm. So from the very beginning, the athletes had to face some pretty trying conditions.
Yeah. This has become a very popular race, hasn't it?
Oh, it really has. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I know. Every year we kind of have to pinch ourselves to say, okay, eventually all this kind of mania, the good mania that comes around this race, it's got to subside, but it doesn't.
I think it just keeps on building, doesn't it?
It does.
And I just was really blown away to meet somebody from my part of the world and from just across the River Mersey. I was born in Birkenhead, and these people were from the University of Liverpool.
Oh, really?
So they're doing some major research into heart and lung function and things like that. So, you know, it's reaching around the world, this race, and it's bringing some very interesting science out, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, that's one of the big things that we do. Is in addition to the race, you know, we have the trail. We take good care of the trail, but we also, medical research is something that from almost the very beginning of this race we've tried to really help further the scholarship as far as the understanding of human performance and what the human body is capable of doing. So it's wonderful these people from all over the world want to come here and conduct some of these great studies.
Yeah, and what an amazing thing that we have Gordy Ainsleigh, who is how old? 66 this year?
66 years old, and Gordy, you know, he was the one who started it 40 years ago, and he still comes out and he still gives it a really great shot. He's an inspirational figure. He's an iconic figure. People really look up to him. It's a wonderful thing to see him out here every year.
Oh, it's amazing. Well, thank you, John. We really appreciate your time and everything that you do for the race.
Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
The following interview was after the race in 2011.
Why do you keep doing this? I mean, what drives you to keep doing it?
It's a good, you know, I mean, what's the alternative? You know, I get old and fat. I'm not willing to do that. You know, I'm not willing to do that. And the other thing is, I never really expected to get old. You know, I was brought up in apocalyptic religion where, you know, the second coming was right around the corner, and an apocalyptic time when, you know, we were hiding under our desks because the Russians were going to bomb us. We did drills in school. You know, I figured the chances were about even that I would live to be an adult, and about zero that I would live to get old. And here I am getting old. I'm totally unprepared. So my approach to it is to be in total denial. I'm just going to do this as long as I can. I'm going to keep doing the stuff that young people do as long as I can. And, you know, everybody says, oh, you got to give in to the years and all this. And I just say, no, I'm just not, you know.
Hi, this is Paula Johnston with Auburn News 20, and standing next to me is Dr. Gordon Ainsleigh, who is the founder of the Western States 100-mile endurance run. Thanks for joining me, Gordy. This is a beautiful spot to be. Tell us, what's it like to live in this heroic status, with this status of people saying, wow, all the time?
Oh, yeah. This last run, there were people on Facebook saying, you know, I got to run with Gordy Ainsleigh for 2 miles.
Yeah, you're like the god of running.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's interesting.
Well, that's a good way to look at it.
I tell people, you know, it's really hard for me to deal with all this adoration. You know, it's difficult. You know, I have a life that is hard. Of course, it isn't. You know, I have a wonderful life. I deal well with adoration. I think probably because of that kid next door, you know, who wouldn't play with me. It's making up for it. It just feels so good, you know, because I have that memory back there that, you know, feeling so bad, you know, so I have the whole contrast. I once wrote down the list of all the misfortunes that led to the creation of this event and this sport. And, you know, they were the kid next door who wouldn't play with me. He'd rather play alone, and, you know, feeling so lonely at school that I ran home for lunch, and you know, and not being able to have enough money to buy a light bicycle to do my paper route. And so often the reason you think you're doing something turns out that isn't the reason at all. You know, I actually think that I was put on this earth to bring trail ultra running to the world. I mean, I actually do think that.
Yeah. Well, I was very interested in a comment you made about Adam Lanza, and I thought that was quite profound. Would you share that?
Sure, yeah. One of the things I found about running is that it relieves emotional pain, internal pain. Like, something can happen to me, and I can just have a lot of pain inside of me. And it'll last until the next time I go running, you know. And you know, I often wonder if that would. I don't think it'd work as well on a road. I'm not sure it'd work as well if, you know. It seems like the best thing for me at that point is to just go for a run alone, and kind of push the pace, run hard. And you know, every now and then in my life, something will come up that'll like take me right back to some experience of being rejected by the neighbor kid, or just there was a neighbor kid who once told me he'd rather play alone than play with me. And I just was so wounded by that. And one of the things I've said is that if somebody had taken Adam Lanza and said, look, I want you to go running with me, I want you to, and taking him out on trails, I'm sure that he would not have gone into that school and killed all those kids and staff members. He just wouldn't have. He was obviously a kid who was in an awful lot of pain. And, he killed his mother, he was angry. And my experience, and it isn't just me, we have people who come in who are obviously, they come into the sport and they're obviously kind of tortured, they're lonely, they're, and pretty soon, they're having wonderful lives. I think that, I think we're all here to do something that only we can do, and if we don't do it, it won't get done. And so I just, I'm always encouraging people, to find, always keep your eye open for what you're here to do, because we all have unique abilities.
Do you find yourself mentoring lots of young people, or any young people?
Well, I do some, in all kinds of things, when a kid comes in who's having trouble with, girls, I tell them things like, don't ask them out on Saturday night,
Oh, well, that's an interesting theory.
Yeah. I mean, if you're all jittery about this girl, ask her out for a walk in a park on Sunday afternoon. If she says no to Sunday afternoon, then you probably shouldn't ask again. Go on to somebody else. So, yeah, I give a lot of practical advice, The
approaching Placer High School track and the finish line of the Western States 100. On a near record heat day, winning the 40th annual Western States 100. Going to be welcomed by his wife Krista and his son Tristan. Oh, nice! Here he is carrying his 10-month-old son Tristan toward the finish line. No hurry now after racing all day. From Ashland, Oregon, winning the 2013 Western State 100, Kenny Olson. Unofficially 15-17-27. Being greeted by race director Craig Thornley. The former NCAA 1500 meter All-American at Butler University, but is a pharmacist in Flagstaff, Arizona. 36 years old, will run up the lap.
Considering how hot it was today, how nice was it when you crossed the river? You kind of just took a little bath in the water out there.
Wonderful. Yeah, I was looking forward to that all day, and just getting down there, that was just, I was really excited to get in that water and sit. So there was a few creek crossings too that I just sat in for a while, and that was just kind of the all day. I was just trying to keep the core temperature as low as possible in those canyons and the heat, and it was difficult, but I managed to pull through.
Was there a point when you were in the water that you didn't want to get out?
Yes, every time. I'm looking forward to a good ice bath. the body is definitely feeling tired, but that's to be expected at 100 miles. So I'm very satisfied, very happy with how the day went.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I got one quick question.
Yeah.
I was standing right next to your wife when you were sitting there doing all the talking.
Yeah.
And I said to her, "You must be so proud. Congratulations." And she said, "Oh, I didn't do it. He did." I want to know what you got to say to that.
She's my other half. She's, I couldn't do it without her, and
I bet she's made a lot of sacrifices doing without you while you've been out training and running.
Yeah. I try to do it during the week. Weekends we run together and take our little son with us in the stroller. So we try to make it a family thing, and during these, I race here, but tomorrow we'll be hanging out with each other and turning it into a vacation and kind of just hanging out in Tahoe for the next few days. So try to, she supports me so well, so I try to make her have a good time as well.
And what's her name?
Krista.
Krista.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to you both.
Thank you very much.
I bet you can't wait to go get that ice bath.
Yes,
Off
really,
you go.
really looking forward to it. Cheers.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
On her neighborhood beat this week, Paula Johnston was invited to a rummage sale, known as the Rummage Sale of the Year, that was over at the First Congregational Church on Auburn Ravine. Joyce Silva, who's an active community volunteer, invited us to check out the treasures that they had for sale at that rummage sale. The church raised over $13,000.
Hi, this is Paula Johnston with Auburn News 20. And in my neighborhood beat today, I happened to stop by the best little rummage sale in Auburn. And
I have been working outside in the garden and basket department.
you must be wilted by now.
I am very wilted.
Yes, it's been quite a day, hasn't it?
I've been in charge of the furniture, most of it being outside.
I noticed a nice rocking chair out there. What else do you have?
Oh, we sold couches and 6 recliners and tables and sofa tables within about 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this was a well-publicized event, evidently.
Yes, it was.
And who should we thank for that?
Our communications board.
And
communications now?
I'm part of communications, and I have I posted all the flyers and everything for that, and then I've been in charge, or helped with cashiering.
I hear you guys have been working on this for a year.
Well, good month is the hard one, but yes, planning for a year and getting,
But the last month's been very intense.
It's been very intense. They thought, as of last week, about 1,000 hours by 23 or 24 people had been put in.
Such a lot of volunteers around here, aren't there?
Yes.
And has it been a great turnout so far?
Oh yes, we were absolutely couldn't breathe this morning.
Oh wow. Joyce, everywhere I go, I find you.
Thank you.
In your wonderful apron.
Yeah, it looks familiar. I don't have anything else to wear, Making sure everybody has their own department, and I really don't have to do much because they all know what to do. It's wonderful. They're very good workers, and they just take over and they just buy into it, and they're proud of their department, and they do a good job.
You think it's been successful so far, and you've got one more day?
We open tomorrow at 8 o'clock, and we will close at 2 o'clock. From 11 until 2 o'clock, it is $1 a bag day.
So Jan is the boutique lady?
I am the boutique lady.
Tell us about your boutique. How did you get to do this job?
I have an interest in collectibles, and the finer, I like the silver and the crystal, and so I volunteered to do this. So this has been a real thing of love to play with all these lovely items that have been generously donated to the church. And the jewelry has been fun to play with and sort, and
Must have been hard to resist some of it.
Yes, it is. So a girl can never have too many pairs of earrings.
That's for sure.
Yes, and we have a lovely collection of Boyd's bears that are still here, and I hope that they find a wonderful home tomorrow. I think I have 8 sets of members' collectible bears, and I have some real nice vintage crystal over here, the hobnail glass, and
which is your favorite item? If you were to be let loose in here, which would you go for first?
That's myself, but we did do some. I have some gorgeous clothing over here, vintage clothing, and some really nice suits and leather coats. Some really nice clothes, and that's very hard to resist also. So I would have a hard time choosing what is my favorite in here, because they've all been really lovely things. We had a good day today, but hopefully more of our things will find homes tomorrow.
Well, let's hope that will be the case.
Yes.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
The First Congregational Church of Auburn is dedicated to helping build the community through their many outreach programs, such as youth groups, choirs, social support groups, as well as working with the Auburn Interfaith Food Closet to provide a meal once a month for recipients of the Gathering Inn's services. The Gathering Inn is a local non-profit organization devoted to helping the homeless people in our community.
You're looking at about a third of what was originally here out on tables.
Wow. What's it called? Oh, Schiffer. Oh my goodness me, look at that. Wow. Hang on, let me get on this side of the window.
Mirror.
Oh, that's the mirror?
These. Whoopsie, it's not out far enough. Pant hanger things that go here to hang your pants and your jackets. 1890s to 1900.
So you've got a box on here for offers?
Yes.
And how do people send their offers in? Is there a phone number or a website or an email? Or
they need to come in.
They need to come in?
Yes, they do.
Where to?
710 Auburn Ravine Road in Auburn.
And we're at the what church?
First Congregational Church, United Church of Christ.
I'm Barry Steigers, K-High Morning News host, and also your host here on Auburn News 20. See you next time.